Our next presentation is by Milton Mattison. Milton's thesis is called College Substance Usage During the COVID-19 Pandemic, and Milton has been working with Dr. Davis. Take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Milton Mattison. I am a senior here at St. Edward's University. I study behavioral neuroscience and biology, and today I'm going to be talking to you about college substance usage over the pandemic.
Just turn it on.
Probably not.
There's a slider on one side.
There we go. Alrighty, to start off, we got to talk about college students. College students, compared to their counterparts that don't go to college, tend to have more substance usage done to them. They partake in more substance usage. Now, there's many reasons on why this could be. Many of it could just be the removal of a parental figure, not inspiring them to be safe and still, and such like that. There's time for experimentation now that they're out and about in a new world, in a different world. There's also the idea of peer pressure and social influences being a major factor. And then, of course, overall college level stress and anxiety being a major and significant influence on substance usage during COVID, or substance usage in college level individuals. Now, the main ones I want to focus on today are going to be the stress and peer pressure aspects of substance usage. In another study done on young adults, substance usage has been shown to have high connection based on levels of peer pressure and stress, and the stress that comes from peer pressure influence on others. And now this study shows mostly results of alcohol. However, because of a lot of people associating marijuana and nicotine with college students and as social aspects, I'm going to also throw that in, but there is no significance showing it from any survey that I found, or any statistics that I found. Now we got to talk about COVID. What is there not to say about this? COVID is a very, very, very impactful time in all of our lives. It causes stress, fear, anxiety, isolation, you name it, it has done it. But there's many different factors of COVID that can be attributed to, but I think the main core one to focus on is what happens during the actual events of a natural disaster. During a study in Hurricane Katrina, cigarette smokers that rarely smoked increased their smoking usage significantly during and then after the events of Hurricane Katrina, causing chronic cigarette usage in New Orleans. And so this shows that stress can be induced from these type of naturalistic disaster events. Now, I was thinking about college students when doing this, and a big change for us was going to online. And even though online was a big change, and for some people it was a main stress having to change that much, there was no sufficient data that actually supported stress increase of the online environment. However, the idea of isolation did show the impact of young adults using more substances whenever the substance was offered or present. There was more of a tendency to use it, if you will. That leads to the end question here. My question here, substance usage increased during the pandemic, yes or no? To start, I think we have to define what is the pandemic. For some people, it is as soon as COVID hit America. For some people, it is March 2020, which I am going to say is when COVID started. That is the time period when the United States government issued a total lockdown and forced all college students to be removed from campus, which I think is the safest bet to say that is the time period of COVID starting. And for COVID ending, I'm going to say it's August 2021. That is when most universities opened up to the public again and introduced the offering of hybridization in person or online. Even the offering of hybridization shows that there was a big step going forward in wanting to return back to normal. So I'm going to consider that the post-COVID era. Anything before March 2020 is before, and then of course between the two time periods is going to be during the pandemic. All of the data was collected through Qualtrics survey. It is a very nice, very simple to use survey collection sheet. As you can see on the picture here, it was a basic demographic layout or questionnaire layout of just how frequently did you use the substance, what's your sexuality, how old are you, etc., and then you just fill it right in. And the main questions I asked were the demographics to get overall statistics on the individuals, substance use, what kind of substances did you partake, mostly focusing on alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. and then stress and anxiety and how that plays a role into, if it did, into their usage. And then data analysis was all collected and done through SPSS. All values were all collected and then put into a repeated measures ANOVA. This looks at time period looks over statistical change over time, mostly over a period of three times. So 4 during and after, 1, 2, 3, seems good to me. And here's a bit of the raw demographic data. Ethnicity is mostly composed of white individuals. For student classification, mostly juniors that partake. For gender, mostly females partake in this study. And then this little guy right here is the number of participants per substance out of 83. So for example, alcohol is 71 out of 83 of the participants participated in alcohol usage. For nicotine, 42 out of 83, and then marijuana, 58 out of 83. And now here are the graphs. For alcohol usage, we're going to look at, and this is for all of them, we're going to look at the different time periods representing before, during, and after on the bottom, 1, 2, and 3. And then on the left is the value at which the participants averaged out to their usage of the substance, 1 through 5. And as you can see, there is an increasing trend over the time period, even going as to increasing more after the COVID has ended. And this is for nicotine, and there is a more of a downward trend showing here. And marijuana, it slightly goes up, but then it begins to plateau and then it begins to lower as well. For stress and for anxiety, both of them peaked during the pandemic, but then now and during the postdoc review, they have been lowered to relatively the same time as when it first started, returning back to the normal levels. And there's anxiety. So what does this all mean? Well, I think the most significant finding of all of this was the COVID levels, or was the alcohol levels. Alcohol not only increased during the pandemic, but continued to increase after the pandemic. Why is that significant? I think that is significant to observe because that means that there is a potential for addiction increase and for future chronic usage of alcohol. But how do we know it's that? We don't. As I stated before, the main group of people that participated in the study were juniors during the time of this, during COVID. That means they were turning 21. It doesn't take 2 brain cells to tell you they were having fun. But they were there's definitely a possibility that that increase is just the return to college and then having drinks with their friends more. And that could just be an off path to that. But what about for nicotine and marijuana? They showed very little change. I feel like there was no change found just because the purpose of their usage changed based on whether it was before or after the pandemic or during the pandemic. I think because during the pandemic there was less social aspects involved, I think it was because there was less social engagement, it was used, if anything, for more stress relief rather than actual being with your friends, peer pressures, and stuff like that. Now, some things I didn't mention that I did collect in this study were illicit substances were recorded and measured. However, there was very little participants in that section to make any clear justification answers. So it was completely disregarded as for the sample collection. And then for housing influence, each participant in the demographics was asked what was your overall housing situation during the time. Like, did you live alone? Did you have a roommate? Did you go back home with your family? And I do plan on incorporating that into my final paper, but at the moment I have not done any statistical analysis and data on how it is relevant to stress, anxiety, or the substances used. And improvements on this study to make it better is one, using a better numerical collection system than Likert. Even though Likert is a very, very simple and easy way to collect numerical data, it is very unreliable. I can say one thing one day, and then a different day I say a different number, and it's very inconsistent and imprecise just because it's asking a personal, how do you feel, or what did you do? And that can always range based on participant to participant. And then this goes for all psychological studies done and all human studies done, sample size. The more sample size we have, the better that the data will be presented in. And if we were to look back at all of them, all of these have shown significant error bars. That's what those lines above and below the line is. Those would be lowered significantly if more participants were to participate, and it would show a better feel of the actual usages of these substances as well. I think the next step going forward though, I think, hoping that we don't get another pandemic, seeing how that correlates to that, see if there's any connections there, and then also looking at what I mentioned earlier with alcohol. I think looking into this post-pandemic period of substance usage and potential chronic alcohol usage is going to be significant coming out of this very extreme time for all of us, including college students. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Dr. Davis to say a few words about Milton. And then we will open up the floor for questions. So it's been really great getting to know Milton in a different way I had him in class and getting to work with him through thesis and see his natural curiosity. Dr. Gary and I were just chatting about how great Milton is at asking these questions and showing that implicit interest in things. And it's been really great. I think you did a great job. Good work. Now I'm going to bestow you with so much wisdom.
Appreciate it. I think the main thing to focus on with like the actual liquor consumption is not the type or the quantity. I think it's the duration of usage, because alcoholism, like defined by like the don't yell at me. The DSM is based on like how much do you drink in a week. So I think the over time, the amount you drink in a duration is more significant than the quantity you drink in a week.
In your survey, did you at all ask about academic performance, if there's a relationship between substance use endurance and academic performance?
I did not. That's a good point to bring up because it could have. I kind of left that neutral, I feel like, because I don't think it was relative to the performance, only because there were so many different factors. And I know for a fact from some of my online classes, a lot of the professors kind of toned it back and toned it down. So I felt like it kind of evens out to the pre and post levels as well as the online levels. So I don't think so.
Why do you think the usage of nicotine lowered kind of output?
So nicotine and tobacco, which I think is what I defined it in the survey, I think lower just because there was a lot of people trying to lower their usages over time. And a lot of people tried to split off from nicotine probably when COVID hit, because it's like, well, if I don't need this, if I'm not going to be around all my buddies that do it, why should I do it? So I think that shows that downward trend. I don't think it was, but as you saw, it wasn't significant enough to be reported, but there was still a downward trend, so that means a few of the participants definitely did.
Do you think it would be interesting in the future to investigate other methods of how people manage stress, like, and that may correlate to alcohol usage, like if people may manage certain conditions like anxiety or depression by medication or like cognitive therapy, if that may
Yeah. Originally, I actually proposed this to Dr. Davis using having it be illicit substances and having it be medicated substances to help relieve stress and stuff. However, we felt like it would be a lot to calculate and overlook, and some people, I think, because of the grid system we were using, would have been too vague for some of the participants. They would not have properly given the correct response, I feel like.
So I really liked all the science that you had explaining the idea of usage of college kids. I'm curious, so where did like the inspiration and the idea for this come from? Like, was it always the same? Did it change over the course of the semester and time of the research?
The core concept itself of college and COVID, I wanted something of it, and I forgot how I came up with it was just substance usage that just hit me in the head, but For the experiment itself, it stayed relatively the same. If anything, we only took out like the illicit substances we had to take out, the medicated substances we didn't even record because it was way too much. But from the start, it was pretty much substance usage in college whenever I got the idea of substance usage.
Would you say that throughout the research process and like the analysis of the data that you collected, were you surprised?
Alcohol surprised me because I thought alcohol, if anything, would have a 1-to-1 scale with the stress and the anxiety, but clearly we were shown wrong with that. Just keep on increasing. Because what it should have done is it should have gone back to the same levels as the pre-COVID era. But in the postdoc, it shows this, and it's even higher than what you see here, which is outstanding to me. But for the nicotine and marijuana, I kind of didn't expect it to increase that much because I felt like it, for myself too, it was more of a social interaction, so I didn't think it would have that spike.
Let's get one more round